Alright, critters. I have a challenge for you. First, we're going to go over some basic things. What determines the price of this card? You're better. What determines the price of this soda? How do you come up with a price for this? Some of you are going to say market forces and economics and all other kinds of things, and you'll be wrong. We're going to get to the very basics. What determines the price of this is cost plus profit. Okay? Cost is the one-to-one cost to make this, meaning the company starts with nothing but money and ends up with a soda, and the price of that soda is exactly the amount of money they spent to make that soda. That's cost. Profit is anything they add on to the cost above and beyond the cost to make the soda. There's all kinds of complexities that go into both of those, but the basic concept is cost plus profit. So, what determines price? Well, price is determined by market forces, by supply and demand, by whatever, how much competition there is. Market forces. You understand the basic concept. You don't have to understand the specifics. You just have to understand the basic idea, the general concept. Okay? But that market force, that supply and demand, has a limit. And the limit is cost. So, market forces, supply and demand, etc., do not determine the absolute price of the product. They determine the value of the profit you can make above cost, because you cannot go below cost. This costs $1.98. Let's call it $2. Now, we all know that the vast majority of that is a convenience charge, that this cost of this is basically almost zero in reality, because you can get a 2-liter bottle of the same stuff for $1.65. I'm not joking. The 2-liter bottle is actually 32 cents, 33 cents cheaper than the 20-ounce bottle. But we're going to ignore that as a niche case scenario. Let's get very simple and very basic. Let's say this sells for $2 and it costs 50 cents to make. So, what are market forces and supply and demand, etc., permitted to alter? They are permitted to alter the range from 51 cents to $2. I have chosen a price of $2, so that's my cap. Right? Unless the market will somehow support more. I've determined that people will accept this at $2. It gets complicated as far as how much you can charge. If you charge more, less people will buy, but you'll make more money. And there are certain prices where you can charge more, and then even though you'll lose sales, the profit makes up for the lost sales. And then you're going to reach a point where the lost sales equal the increased profit, and then you're going to pass that point, and now you're actually losing more sales than you are gaining in profit by raising the price. That's complicated economics. We're not discussing that. Let's just go with $2.50 to make it, because those are easy numbers to work with. So your market forces are not permitted to drive the price of this below 50 cents. Your supply and demand is not permitted to drive the price of this below 50 cents. So when we say market forces and supply and demand, what we mean is the profit portion of the price. You're not allowed to touch the cost portion of the price. Because if I have to sell this for less than what it costs me to make it, well then this disappears and I stop selling this because I'm not making any money. Okay? So that's a very important thing to understand. Now, as a business, if you need this, let's say you're going to make this bottle, and you need these. You need these caps to make this bottle. You also need the bottle, machinery, the chemicals, the water, etc. But let's keep it simple. You need this cap. If you understand economics and business, you're going to know what I'm going to say. But it's very simple. You only have 3 choices. There is no 4th choice. You have 3, and only 3. You can pay the asking or negotiated price of a seller to buy these. You can make them yourself, or you can do without them. As a business owner, those are your only three options. There is no option D, there is no option 4, there is no option 5. There are only three options. Make them yourself, pay someone else to make them, in which case you pay their asking price or you negotiate a price. So for example, I might charge 10 cents a cap. Well, that's a lot for a 50-cent cost soda, okay? So you go to me and say, well, okay, I can't do 50 cents, I can't do 10 cents on a cap. Can we negotiate? I'm like, okay, I have some wiggle room. What are you talking about? Can I get 2 cents? No, I'm sorry, man, my cost is 3. So I can't go below 3. I have the same problem you have. I cannot go below my costs. Now, maybe I'll sell them for 8 cents if you buy like 50,000 of them. And, maybe I'll sell them to you for a nickel if you buy 5 million of them. Okay, I'm losing half my money, so now I'm only making 2 cents on each one, but I'm selling 5 million of them right now. It's a $500,000 deal or whatever it is. That might be worth it, especially if I'm not paying employees and it's just machine time. Crank them out. Okay, so I'm willing to take a little less profit for a larger bonus all at once. Volume. Okay, that's why the 2-liter is cheaper than the 20-ounce. Okay, because the one you're paying for volume, the other one you're paying for the convenience. Usually it's in a gas station or a cooler up front. You're paying for the convenience, but that's another subject. So what if you decide still that, okay, that price is too expensive, that, I'm not going to go below 5 or 6 cents. Okay, that's still too much. Well, now your choice is to do it yourself. You'd have to build a factory and manufacture these caps yourself. That's exactly what Pepsi does. Or whoever makes Mountain Dew. I don't know who the company is. I don't know if it's Pepsi. It's Mountain Dew Company. Okay? So they make them themselves because they use so many of them that it becomes practical to actually make your own factory and make them yourself because you could do it so cheaply. I don't know if they actually do that or not. I'm assuming they do that. Whatever. Point is, your option 2, if you can't buy or negotiate a deal with somebody, is to make them yourself. What if that's still too expensive? What if, that guy, selling them to you for 5 cents a pop really is the cheapest you can do it? Okay? And, well, your third option is do without them. Now, if you choose not to pay someone, and you can't do it yourself, and you have to opt to do without them, well, that might mean that this product is not economically viable. There might not be enough profit margin in it for you. Well, then you don't make the product. That happens all the time. Someone goes to make something. How many Kickstarters have failed because the amount that they charged for the Kickstarter wasn't enough to pay for the actual product once they actually figured out how much it was going to cost to produce and mass produce and send this thing out? That happens all the time. It's one of the risks you take in a Kickstarter. This person, they thought they could do it for $150. Turns out it costs $300. The project fails because they can't do it. You don't get your money back because they spent the money trying to do it. No, I'm assuming they're not a criminal or a scammer. But that happens, and sometimes that's what happens. The product is not economically viable. We don't sell it. Okay? Maybe you do without the cap, and you only do fountain drinks. Well, there you go. That's what you would do. Okay? So you have 3 options, and only 3 options. Buy it, do it yourself, or do without it. Those are your only 3 options. If you sit down and think about it, there is no option 4. Technically there is, but we're assuming a moral, ethical, company. I mean, I could steal them, but we're assuming that's not an option, okay? We're assuming committing a crime or harming somebody is not an option. We're assuming that theft is not an option, okay? So your 3 legitimate, I guess I should say, options are buy them, do it yourself, or do without them. So here's the question. This is where a whole bunch of you are about to have a mental infarction. And your brains are about to do a hard divide by 0. And you're going to see a blue screen of death in front of you. And you're going to try to 3-finger salute that shit and it ain't going to work. Okay? So this is where cognitive dissonance is going to set in. Why can we have an option 4 for labor? Labor is a product. No different than this, no different than the water and the chemicals that make up the soda, the label, the cap. Labor is a product. The same rules are supposed to apply. You either do without the labor, you do the labor yourself, or you pay someone to do the labor. Now, in most cases, we choose the pay someone to do the labor. Now, that has more meaning than I intended. That has a lot more meaning than I intended. That's a snafu that's actually very, very applicable to the situation. So with labor, we've come up with an option 4. This option is as old as mankind itself. It's called slavery. Slavery is, when you boil it down to a business economic concept in Business Econ 101, slavery is theft of labor. Okay, what is theft of labor? If I'm selling these caps for a nickel a piece, and I take the caps from you and hand you 3 cents a piece, did I pay you? Kinda. But I also stole from you because I didn't give you the 5 cents. I stole the caps from you and then said, here's 3 cents. Sorry, that's still theft. It's lesser theft than just taking the caps. Slavery is not black people in a plantation field picking cotton. It's not just that. Slavery isn't just Chinese and Irish people building a railroad. Okay? Slavery is a spectrum. And what did we determine slavery basically is in Econ 101? It's basically theft of labor. I'm making you perform labor without compensating you for it. Well, if I take your bottle caps and don't compensate you fully, I still stole your bottle caps. If I take your labor and don't compensate you fully, I still stole your labor. And stealing labor is slavery. What we have today is a nicer form of slavery, kind of, but it's still slavery. I will die on that hill. Now, that doesn't answer the question really, though, because you can't just say, I didn't get enough money, so I'm a slave and you're a slave owner and you're stealing from me. I want more money. Well, it's not that simple. You can't just declare how much money you want, okay? Give me $40 an hour or it's slavery. That's not how it works, okay? There has to be some logic and reason behind it, okay? That begs the question. How much does labor cost? Not how much does it cost you. You are not the owner of the labor. I keep looking up here, but I got to remember to look down here because the camera's down here. The screen's up here. You don't own the labor. The laborer does. So the calculation of the cost of the labor can only come from the laborer. It can't come from you. Now, that price you pay for the labor becomes a cost in your math when you have to cost your products and services. But when you go to buy that labor, when you go to purchase that labor, you don't set the price. Just like you don't set the price of the cap. You say, market forces. No. Go back to the beginning of the video. What do market forces determine? Market forces determine the profit you can make on the labor. They don't determine the cost of the labor. What is the cost of labor? I actually know what that cost is. I have that cost written down right here. This is the cost of labor, approximately. I think my number is extremely conservative. I think my number is a bit of a fantasy. I don't think it's likely that a significant number of people could actually survive on that number under the rules in play. But it's the best I've been able to come up with. So cost of labor is literally cost of living. You are giving your life to a company. Literally giving your life to a company. 2,000 hours a year. Most of you spend more time working for your employer than you do sleeping. And most of us sleep 8 hours a day. You're literally giving your life to a corporation. That corporation owes you, at minimum, the cost of your life. What is the cost of your life? Not the price of your life. Because the price of your life might include lobster and Hawaiian vacations. That's not how that works. We're talking about cost. All right? Now, once we determine cost, then and only then can market forces and supply and demand determine the price above cost, meaning the profit. So in this instance, if a laborer makes more than the cost of a life, they're making a profit in the context of Business and Economics 101. But anything less than that is below cost, which we've determined is impossible. Remember, your three choices are do it yourself, do without it, or pay someone for it. Except we've come up with an option 4. Slavery. But because there's no whips and because it's not full-on slavery, we've brainwashed and gaslit ourselves into convincing ourselves that it's not slavery. Well, how about we call it labor theft? Just like if you stole all my bottle caps and just left me 3 cents a piece for them. Because you've decided that's how much they're worth. Try going to a car dealership and taking the car and only leaving 40% of the sticker price or 70% of the sticker price. Yeah, see how well that works out for you. By the way, fun statistic. Do you know what the largest volume of theft in the country is? If you took every dollar that's stolen, every dollar an accountant embezzled, every dollar a crackhead stole, or a crook at a store stole, or someone stole from their grandma, every reported dollar stolen, every dollar stolen that we're aware of, if you took all the money for a whole year that was stolen, do you know where 70% of it comes from? 70%. $7 out of every 10. $7 million out of every $10 million. Do you know where 70% of all U.S. theft comes from? Wage theft. From the very poorest in the whole country. Wage theft. And we're not talking about the theft of paying you less than minimum wage. Minimum wage being the cost of living. We're talking about theft beyond even that. Like, I'll pay you $8.50 an hour, but I'm going to steal some of it. 70% of all theft in the U.S. is wage theft. That's insane. So, what is the cost of living? What is the cost of labor? You say, well, what if you only work 20 hours a week? Well, then you owe 50% of the cost of labor, which is a yearly number, not an hourly number. You owe 50% of what that person needs for a year. So it's going to be the same number. Whether it's 10 hours, 20 hours, or 40 hours, it's going to be the same hourly number. Your total outlay will be less, but your hourly outlay is going to be the same. How did I come up with this number? So let me describe this individual for you, because I want to make sure you have a full grasp of just how fairy tale this number is. Like, I don't think this number is even possible. This person, first of all, no cheat codes, no social services, and no cherry picking. So you can't go, well, I paid $425 to live in some guy's trailer. Okay, my city has 600,000 people. Find me 300,000 trailers for $425 a month. If you can't, you're cherry picking a number, because no one else can get that number but you. That is an individual exception. We're talking about the bulk. We're talking about everybody. Meaning every single person making minimum wage needs to be able to achieve this survival. That means you have to use averages. Cheat codes is anything that allows you to survive on less than these numbers. So, for example, if I happen to be closer to work and I can make do with a bicycle instead of a car, that's a cheat code. But that cheat code is supposed to benefit you. not allow your employer to pay you less. You're supposed to gain the benefit of those cheat codes in order to improve your position in life. It's not supposed to allow your slave master to pay you less. All right? Social services. That means no welfare. That means no state Medicare. That means no food stamps. No social services whatsoever. Because the whole point of this is to pay for the cost of labor. To pay a living wage so people can pay their own way in life without having to mooch off the government for survival. So, no social services, no cheat codes, no cherry picking. Now, I'm about to break my own rule because this is such a crazy situation that I have to allow some pretty expansive cheat codes to even make this number possible. So, to make this number possible, first, this person will be permitted to start with a car. We're going to your parents gave you a car. Now, that car has to last you for your life and can never break down because this budget does not include enough to replace that car. So we're going to assume you have the everlasting gobstopper of cars, that as long as you perform regular maintenance on this car, it'll last forever. See what I mean by cheat codes? We're going to assume you never get seriously sick, because the healthcare number I came up with is bullshit. Google tells me the average cost per month for healthcare is $456. I don't think that's possible. I have never been able to find healthcare for less than $600 or $700 unless you go with social healthcare, such as the Obamacare, American Health Plan thing, or whatever. But that's social healthcare. You're not allowed to do that. Okay? So I don't know how Google came up with $456. I don't know, but that's what Google came up with. That's what I'm using. I think that number is closer to $600 or $700, but we're going to go with the $456. I have a feeling that they're averaging the cost outlay of people who get employee-provide health care versus the people who pay for the health care, so the number comes out somewhere in the middle. I think that's how they're doing it, I'm assuming, because I can't get health care for $456 anywhere. But we're going to use that number. We're going to consider that an acceptable cheat code because I can't find more verifiable data. Okay? Anything that deals with the car, we're going to use standard average values, which means my numbers are already massively out of date because gas is currently 60 cents a gallon more than what I used when I calculated these numbers. We're assuming standard mileage, which is average mileage 14,263 miles a year, average fuel economy 24.5 miles per gallon. Anything outside of those values is a cheat code, meaning if you elect to start with a Geo Metro to save gas, you are supposed to benefit from that savings, not your employer. So we're going to use average numbers. DMV numbers are hard to come up with, so I'm assuming you elected to live in a state that does not have onerous DMV costs, which are about half the states in the country. So another cheat code. Also, DMV costs are multi-year expenses. So I've taken those total costs, divided them by the year and by the month to come up with a monthly number. So when you see that number, that's how I came up with that. For example, in Pennsylvania, your driver's license is $47. It's good for 4 years. So that's $12.33 a year, or $11.66 a year. A little bit less than $12 a year, because it's 12 times 4 is 48, which is just over the $47. So I use $12 per year or $1 per month, plus inspection, plus registration, to come up with that DMV number. That's why it's so small. You might be going, well, I pay more than that. I'm dividing the number by years and by months. Here in New Mexico, my car is, $40 a year for registration. Right next door in Arizona, they charge sales tax on the cars. So your car is going to cost you a lot more in Arizona. So you'll have to adjust these numbers to account for that. All of these numbers are verifiable. You can find all of these numbers with a simple Google search for what those numbers are, and any numbers that require more metrics, I just gave them to you. Okay? Some of these numbers I guessed, and I guessed on the low side. Okay? So, who is this person? This is a person who starts with a car, starts with a phone, and this person, that phone will never break, and that car will never break seriously. So basic maintenance, yes. Things like brakes, exhaust, yes, we have that covered, but major transmission engine damage, this does not cover that. Okay, so cheat code. Basic costs are things like, buying basic clothing, buying basic toiletries. This person will be shopping at thrift stores. This person will be shopping at yard sales. Entertainment costs. None. You get whatever phone you start with and a $25 a month prepaid phone plan, which is unlimited everything, to go with that phone, and that is the limit of your communications and entertainment. So you better learn how to use PDA net so you can connect a computer to it, and you better learn how to use a Chromecast or an HDMI cable so you can connect it to your TV, because you get no home internet, you get no home cable, you get no Netflix or Hulu, you get no Warcraft membership. You can play whatever games you want as long as they're free. And don't go over your data limit. Okay? You can get whatever entertainment you can get as long as it's free. Hope you can share it with somebody else. You will never eat at a fast food joint. You're never going to eat at McDonald's. You're never going to eat at a diner. You're never going to get takeout. You're never going to go to Disney World. You're never going to go to Grand Flags. You are never going to go to the movies. You are never going to go to a concert. You're not going to do anything that isn't both free and local, because you have to fit it within that 14,000 mile a year mileage budget. Otherwise, your costs go up, and you don't make enough for your costs to go up. That's the kind of person we're talking about here. And this is a person who's going to be healthy, because if they get sick, they're going to exceed their healthcare costs. We're also, for the purpose of this discussion, assuming 25 years or older, because if you're under 25, these numbers are a fucking fantasy. Your car insurance will be double this, if not triple this. We're assuming 25 years old, so all of you people 24 and under, fuck you. Hey, that's the reality of trying to come up with these numbers, okay? And we're assuming that you might not have good credit, but you at least don't have bad credit. Because if you have bad credit, that's your fault usually, unless it's medical debt or your parents fucked you over, which happens quite a lot. Parents put credit cards in their kids' name, and then their kids are fucked. Okay, so that's a lot of provisos, isn't it? Well, you better play this section back again, because those are your rules that you must adhere to if you wish to challenge a single number that I'm about to read to you. Because all these numbers are researched and vetted. These numbers will apply to about 85% of the geographical United States. So if you want to try to live in Anchorage, that ain't going to work. If you want to try to live in San Diego or San Francisco or New York City, that ain't going to work. I don't even know if this will work in Philadelphia, to tell you the truth. But you're probably going to have to live outside of a city. Probably. Okay? I don't know. Depends on the city. Smaller cities, fine. Bigger cities, no. Okay? So here are the numbers. Now remember, these numbers have to work for everybody. You can't just cherry pick a set of numbers that can work for a single person. Alright? The median per capita income in the United States. That's the actual number we need to be using. We come up with all these household averages and these family averages, and because we have families with hundreds of billions of dollars, they distort the numbers. Even when you're using medians, they distort the numbers. So what we have to use is we have to use median per capita. You can type that into Google. Also, all of these numbers are variable. I mean, the rent number is 1,098. 2 weeks ago it was 1,068. So these numbers change almost daily. So if you look up one of these numbers and say, oh, that's not the right number, fuck you. If it's relatively close to what I'm listing, you get my goddamn point. Okay? This number is going to go up and down a couple $100 every couple months. It's a variable number. If we're within the ballpark, we accept the number. Okay? The point is to make a point. It's a concept. It's an idea. So this is the minimum. This is survival wage with all of the cheat codes that I just listed. All right? No Netflix, no eating out, no takeout, no fast food, no diners, no entertainment that you can't get for free on your phone, no home internet, no Xbox Connect, no Warcraft membership, none of that. Any online games that you have to pay for? Nope, you can't afford it. Okay? You'd have to take money from one of these budgets in order to do that. So here are your numbers for this minimum survival wage for the United States. Rent, $1,098. Healthcare, $456. Food, $300. That's a low number. People who have access to farmers markets and produce stands will probably be doing pretty good with this number. People who don't have access to that, like here in New Mexico, you're going to have a tough time on $300. Nutritional balance is going to be a problem. It is possible to eat nutritionally on $300 a month, but it's going to be carb heavy. So exercise is going to be important for this individual to avoid obesity. because most of our affordable foods are carb-heavy foods. Well, what's a pound of broccoli cost? What, $3-4 a pound? What's a pound of bread cost? 88 cents. Okay? Food, $300. It really should be $400, but remember, we're going survival wage here. So this person's going to have to be pretty intelligent, pretty organized, and pretty on the ball. That takes out 40% of the country. Phone, $25 a month. Yes, that is possible. That's what I'm paying. I'm actually paying $20 a month because I have 2 accounts. Hello Mobile, T-Mobile phone. You can use any phone that has a GSM card. I don't gain nothing by you going there. HelloMobile.com, $25 a month. Don't expect much help from support. Make sure you buy either an unlocked multi-band phone that covers all the bands T-Mobile uses, or make sure you buy a T-Mobile-centric used phone. Because, like, for example, I got a phone that was AT&T centric, and it was a bitch making it work just because the AT&T parts kept trying to take over. But $25 a month, unlimited everything. So you're never going to have to pay for minutes. You're never going to have to pay for text. You're never going to have to pay for data. You're not going to get the best service, but it's $25 a month. And that's basically the only service you have, and only because it's mandatory. You cannot function without basic computer and telecommunications access. You can't even apply for a job without a computer. Okay? Utilities, $200. I think that's a little low, but it's doable. Make sure you live down south, because you're not paying for winter on $200 a month. So that takes out the whole entire top half of the country and anything over 4,000 feet. Car insurance, $150 a month. Good luck with that. If you're under 25, that's a pipe dream. If you have bad credit, you ain't getting anywhere near that. But it's an average that came up, so $150. What is this? Maintenance, $42. This is the money you have to put aside in order to be able to maintain that car. When a tire blows, you'll have the money for it. When it needs an oil change, you'll have the money for it. Do it yourself, because if you have to pay for an oil change, you're going to blow this budget. When your brakes fail, you ain't going to a shop to get those brakes done. You'll blow your entire budget with one brake job. So you're going to have to learn to do your own brakes. You go to AutoZone, you get the parts. Fuel, $146. This number is already obsolete. If I calculated this number again, it would probably be like $180. But that is based on the national average of 14,263 miles at the time that I made this, which I didn't write a date down. It's like 2 weeks ago. And that's a national average fuel economy of 24.5 miles per gallon. So if you have a car that gets less than that, that's your problem. If you have a car that gets better than that, well, that's for you to save money on, not for your employer to save money on. Basics, $50 a month. This is toilet paper, toothpaste, shoes, t-shirts, whatever. The clothing you need, your regular clothing. Why is it so much? Well, go look at how much toilet paper costs, toothpaste costs. We're talking dollar store stuff here. Well, there is no dollar store anymore. We now have not a Dollar Tree. But like if you need a pair of shoes, you're talking $30 to $50. And if you walk for a living, you're in trouble because you really need good shoes. Because cheap shoes are going to cost you a fortune in the long run. But $50 a month, and that covers all your basic needs. You will not be shopping at major stores. You will be shopping at thrift stores and buying used clothes and used items. You will be shopping at yard sales and garage sales. You will be stalking the killer deals on Amazon and Walmart. I just found some long sleeve Gildan shirts for $4 a piece. Yeah, you bet your ass I grabbed those. Finding a shirt in my size for $4? Whew! So you're not buying Gucci. You're not buying Forever 21. You're buying Walmart. You're buying the cheap side of Amazon. You're buying thrift stores. You're buying garage sales and yard sales. That's the way you're going to survive. You don't make enough money to survive any other way. Entertainment, $0. You don't have an entertainment budget. Luxuries, $0. You don't get luxuries. Eating out, yeah, right, $0. There is no eating out. Not even ordering Domino's, baby. That's just not happening. DMV, $13. Remember, I told you this is multi-year, total monthly and multi-year expenses, all divided out to come to a monthly number. TV, no, $0. Whatever you can get on the aerial. And you're going to have to go to the thrift store to get that TV, and you might not be able to afford that either. You're probably going to have to find one on the garbage. Or get one from a friend when they upgrade. So, but TV, I mean cable or something like that. Nope, you get no cable. Home internet, nope. You don't get home internet. You could maybe get that $10 AT&T plan if you can get them to honor it. But you make too much money to get that. So, streaming services, since you don't have cable, no, you don't get no streaming services. You get whatever's free on YouTube. That's it. Sorry. Maybe get somebody to add you to their Amazon account, which is going to require close friends since you'll have access to buy stuff. But you can access Amazon Prime Video for free if somebody gives you access. So, after all of that, what does that come to? What does that come to per year? $29,760. But that's after taxes. So we need to know how much you have to actually earn in order to have $29,760 to spend. That is $37,200. In most places, you need to make roughly $37,200 a year in order to end up with, after tax, $29,760 a year in order for you to pay for all the things that we just listed. And that's all you get. So you better hope that car never breaks. You better hope you never have a major health issue. Better hope your phone never breaks, although phones are pretty cheap. You can get, decent old flagship phones for $50. But on this budget, about the only way you can do that is to, take your, a piece of your car and your basics budget one month and hope that you don't need that. Try to get a couple of dollars from each of those to replace the phone if it dies, because it's only going to last you about 3 years before that battery is no good anymore. And it's very difficult to find a phone that doesn't have a non-replaceable battery anymore. And you need a decent phone because that is your only access to communications, entertainment, computing, internet, everything. You have no home internet service. Okay? Even if you get somebody to give you a hand-me-down laptop or computer, the only way you're connecting that thing to the internet is if you do it, by violating your terms of service. You use a little program called PDA Net that would allow you to Wi-Fi connect that laptop or computer to your phone and use your phone's data connection on the laptop. It actually works pretty good as long as you don't try to stream stuff. But just for filling out applications, going to web pages, your resume work, stuff like that, it works for that quite well, as long as you have good reception. So that is your total. Now, how much is that? Well, 2,000 hours. So you take 37,200 and divide it by 2,000 hours. For some reason I have... Oh, yeah, that's if we took out healthcare. Okay. That's $18.60 an hour. $18.60 an hour. That is minimum survival wage in the bulk of the United States outside of major cities. If you already have a car, you already have a phone, you never have a major car breakdown, and you never have a major health issue. $18.60. And as you can see by what I listed here, you're a machine. You live to work and nothing else. Because you will have no life unless someone pays your way. You will have no entertainment unless someone gives it to you. The only way you're going to see the movies, okay, you could probably take as long as you're within your mileage budget, you could probably take $6 out of your basics budget, every couple of months and go see a matinee on Tuesday. Like my local Icon Cinema here is $6 on Tuesdays. Actually $6.47 after you add tax. But it's also 48 miles round trip. So I got to make sure I can budget that 48 miles into my fuel budget, because that's not an insubstantial amount of fuel. So you might be able to squeeze in some entertainment here and there, by, wearing that t-shirt, that grungy t-shirt a little bit longer and not buying a new one at the thrift store yet. Stuff like that. You could add a little bit of entertainment in here. But regular monthly services like cable TV, satellite TV, nicer phone plans, eating out, stuff like that, nah. You have no budget for it. Buying a pair of Nikes, never going to happen unless you... actually, you can. I mean, I see Nikes, Timberlands, Adidas, Pumas, Vans all the time at thrift stores. If you have a common shoe size, there's a pretty decent chance you can get a pretty damn nice pair of shoes at a local thrift store. Even Goodwill. The clothing is one of the few things that's a decent price at Goodwill. Otherwise, look for the non-Goodwill thrift stores. Also, kitchen stuff is usually pretty cheap, too. So getting pots and dishes and stuff like that's not going to be expensive. That'll all fit within your basics budget, as long as you use thrift stores and yard sales and stuff like that. I would advise seeking out quality stuff. You know, pay a little bit of extra pennies for Corelle plates, stainless steel cookware, stuff that you can maintain, clean, and keep running for a long time. As you can see, this person's pretty poor. And this person makes more than 50% of the entire country. Rewind back. What's the per capita income? The median per capita income in the country. Median means split down the middle. So if you have 100 people, these 50 make that much or less, and these 50 make that much or more. Right in the middle. So that means of the 160 million working Americans, 80 million of them make $34,000 a year or less. Don't walk on the keyboard or I'm going to boop you in the nose. This cat really badly wants to walk on the keyboard. So you're already, you're already in the top 40% at $37,000. You're already making more. This is minimum survival wage, and you're already making more than 60% of the country. Now fight me. I mean it. Come on, fight me. Challenge me. Challenge these numbers. You have to use the same rules I just used. If you want to use different rules, you've got to convince me that those rules are logical and reasonable. No cheat codes, because cheat codes are supposed to benefit you, not your employer. Sharing an apartment? Fuck you. If I'm going to share an apartment, I want that extra cash in my fucking pocket. Not in my employer's pocket for his next fucking Lamborghini. Or his next Tesla. Whatever. Alright? So if you're going to institute any sort of modification, you must show me that that modification benefits you and not your employer. So you tell me, using average vetted numbers. We're not even talking about people living in major cities. They're screwed. Alright? We're talking about Edgewood, New Mexico, Albuquerque, Taos, or Roswell, or outside of Atlanta, Georgia, or outside of forget Levittown. You're not going anywhere near there. But the mountains of Pennsylvania, Allentown, or something like that. Or freaking Hoboken, Ohio, somewhere, or the middle of empty Michigan somewhere. We're talking about anywhere across the country outside of a major city. This is how much you need. This is all the numbers in blue and white. I mean, there's no working around these numbers. These numbers are fixed values. You can't negotiate. Get a screen grab of that. And then you go hit Google and start looking these numbers up. You're going to see they're all right. And you're going to wonder, how the fuck are we doing it then? The biggest thing you're going to hear people say, well, you have to be wrong because 50% of the country isn't living in the dirt. That's because we have massive cheat codes. I mean, look at me. How am I able to survive like this on $600 a month? That's how much I make. I'm probably going to have to go get a job. I'm trying to, my own company, I'm trying to make that work. But with the COVID just killed me, and the effects COVID had on me messed me up a little bit. I got to get my mind back in the game. I'm probably going to have to go get a part-time job. But how do I survive on $600 a month? Well, I own this house. That's a massive cheat code. Oh boy, is that a massive cheat code. I was able to sell my business in New Jersey and pay for this house. Cash. $47,000, as is, where is, sight unseen. It cost me over 10 grand to make the house livable before I had, electricity and running water. Thankfully, the sewer was okay. The septic was fine. Because that's 5 grand I don't have. Alright, so I own my house. So my rent is $50 a month. That's the property taxes divided by 12, which is basically rent. Alright, so my rent, I've earned the privilege of paying $50 a month rent. That's a massive cheat code. I also chose an area of the country that is very comfortable and very cheap to live, because there's a lot of costs associated based on where you live. So, for example, I could have found some pretty nice houses in Pennsylvania that were affordable, like right on the Ohio border there. But now you've got salt, rain, and heavy winters. Well, that increases the maintenance costs for your house. That increases the maintenance costs for any piece of equipment that you have that's used outdoors. That increases your shoe costs. That increases your car maintenance costs. Go look at a used car in Pennsylvania. Yeah, you're not going to find too many of them more than 10 years old, 15 years old that aren't rust buckets ready to be sent to the scrapper. Okay? Out here, you see freaking 80s and 90s, just generic Broncos and Camrys and Ford Escorts and crap like that. They're not show cars. They got mismatched panels and peeling, clear coat, but they're in decent shape and they're still running just fine. And that's because I live in a desert, which really, really helps the longevity of stuff like that. My house needs almost no maintenance. If I got a hole in the roof, I could, put a piece of tape over and ignore it for 6 months because we only get 12 inches of rain a year. Okay? So in Pennsylvania, you get a hole in your roof, you fix it like that or it's going to cost you thousands because that water is going to create mold everywhere. So there are different things that I can do as cheat codes. But I had to move 2,100 miles to buy an as-is, where-is, sight-unseen house with a business that I was able to sell that I didn't even start. My dad started it, and but he never was able to pay me back. To buy this house, I had those cheat codes, those superpower cheat codes that 99% of the population will never have. So you have to use averages. You can't use cheat codes. The median per capita income in the country is $34,000, which means, logistically, for you to dispute these numbers, you would have to show me how 60% of the population of wherever you live could survive on whatever numbers you come up with. So my town has, 8,000 people, or 7,500 people. So 7,500, let's do 50% to make it easy, okay? If I want to come up with a number different than this, I would have to show that 3,750 people could actually make those numbers work. Then you have a viable minimum wage. But that number would only apply to here. You go 30 miles that way into Albuquerque and that number doesn't work anymore. Okay? So these are national average numbers. And as you can see by all the cheat codes I had to give you to even come up with these numbers, even this isn't going to work. So, what are these numbers? Down here. $30,360 and $15.18 per hour. Well, that's a survival wage if we have universal health care. If we institute universal health care, meaning 100% of your health care is a cost just by you being a citizen. How do we pay for it? With our taxes. We already pay more per capita than any other country on the planet. So by instituting universal health care, our taxes would actually go down. Let me say that again. If we instituted universal national health care, our taxes would actually go down, not up. Because we would save trillions. Not paying the price gouging to all these pharmaceutical companies. Okay? So universal health care would allow a person on $30,360 a year, which is $15.18 to survive with the same cheat codes. That would actually probably make the $18 an actual living wage. Meaning you'd actually be able to do something with that. So if we had universal health care and we wanted a living wage, not a survival wage, it'd probably be about $18, $19 an hour with universal health care. With that amount of money, you could eventually, like for example, you could make do without most of these services, that are already zero because of the survival wage. So now that you're making a little bit more, instead of adding these services, make do without them and get a roommate. And now that savings you can put aside for a down payment on a house, so that you can get rid of your biggest expense in your entire budget, $1,098 a year for rent. That alone, whatever your mortgage is, it's going to be less than that. Mortgages are always less than rent because rent includes mortgage. You're paying someone else's mortgage. We could also fix it by instituting affordable housing. Why is housing so expensive? Well, that's actually easier to see than you might think. It's because of property taxes. We have to eliminate property and school taxes. We'll have to increase other taxes to collect that money because the schools obviously need that money, but we can't collect it by assigning a property tax. Because by assigning a property tax, you have now made it a direct tax. And when you make it a direct tax, you have a choice: pay or go to jail. So no matter what, there's nothing to stop you from raising it again and again and again and again. I mean, the reason I left Pennsylvania is because my property and school taxes were $8,500 a year. Out here, it's $560, and I have 1.25 acres. Nice acres, actually. I got a nice layout. All right? It's not much land, but it's mine. And then so why do property taxes cause housing prices to go up? Well, that's the beginning. Because when your income as the county or the state is property taxes, well, you now have a vested interest in increasing those taxes in order to increase your revenue. Just like these guys want to sell this for as much as they can. Well, right now, what's limiting the price of this soda is what people are willing to pay for it. As long as people are willing to pay $2 for 10 cents worth of soda, they will charge $2 for 10 cents worth of soda. What happens if buying this soda was compulsory? You had no choice. You go to jail if you don't buy the soda. Well, now I'll charge you $10. What are you going to do? Not pay it and go to jail? Well, that's exactly what happens with property taxes. Now, they can't be that overt, although Bristol was getting that overt. But because people there were, median income in Levittown was $85,000 a year, so people didn't care. They had a nice place to live. But it was pushing all the poor people out. Even people who owned their homes, like me, were being pushed out. Because it was either leave and sell the home for what I can get, or they were going to take it from me when I couldn't pay the taxes. So, you have a vested interest in increasing property taxes. How do you do that? Well, you control the zoning laws and regulations, right? So you start making affordable housing illegal. You start basically making nicer homes mandatory by restricting the ability to make simple, small, cheap, affordable homes. People who started the tiny home movement discovered this problem when they realized, like, what do you mean? I've got this really nice, $110,000 tiny home I had made, and I'm not allowed to put it on my property? It's less than 400 square feet. No. If any room is less, besides a bathroom, is less than 120 square feet, it's illegal in some places. It's different all over the place. They tried to do that here. Mayor Bassett, the previous mayor of this town, he effectively made mobile homes, what I live in, illegal. So you were grandfathered in if you already had one, but they would not issue a permit for longer than 12 months to put a mobile home on a property. It was supposed to be temporary until you built your home. Why? Why would you do that? Well, because permanent homes are worth more money, which drives property values higher, which means you can collect more taxes. If you're collecting 4% of a $50,000 property or 4% of a $100,000 property, you're collecting double the tax money. So they create zoning rules that drive up house prices. Okay? Now, as you drive up house prices, it becomes harder to pay for a house with a reasonable payment. So they created longer home loans. So now your house price just doubled by the time you pay that annual percentage rate amortized over 30 years. Well, if we're going to pay double, we might as well make a nicer $200,000 home to justify 30 years of mortgage payments. It's a cascading effect of driving up the value of homes to the point where it's now illegal in most places to build an affordable house because the house won't pass zoning restrictions. So we start by getting rid of the property taxes, which eliminates the incentive to create restrictive zoning because now you can't profit from it. Now, in fact, you actually create the opposite effect, which we'll also have to regulate because that could also be bad. Now, for example, if we can't get rid of property taxes altogether, let's say we have a fixed property tax. Everybody pays $100 a year until we can amortize taxes in other ways. Well, now they have a vested interest in increasing the number of homes. So you got to be careful they don't go the other way and pack people in like sardines in order to maximize their, again, profit. That's why you have to eliminate it eventually. So now that you've done that, you can start pushing back on those zoning regulations on a national level, encouraging towns, increase their highway budget or something like that if they push back on the zoning, which will reduce the cost of housing, which will allow us to build more houses because renting is an aberration. Renting shouldn't exist. Not like it is. Not at the scale that it is. Renting doesn't make sense. Unless you're in the military, unless you are a nomad, unless you're a roaming salesman or somebody who travels all over the country, renting makes no sense for most people. Most people do not rent by choice. They rent because there is no other choice. But it doesn't make sense to rent. I mean, renting is a form of usury. At least that's what it's become. How did the redlining work so viciously against the poor population of the country in the 50s? Well, because the black people weren't allowed to get home loans, the white people were, which allowed them to leverage equity to do more things like start a business, go to school, or pass something down to your children, which created generational wealth, which the black people and poor white people who happened to live in those same neighborhoods weren't allowed to have because they never got that first home loan. So they never developed equity. And so those people were stuck in a cycle of rent, poverty, rent, poverty, rent, poverty that they can't escape. And as we've jacked the prices up higher and higher, what's the median price for a house now? What $340,000, $295,000, some crazy number? The median price for a house. Do you know what the median price for a house in 1980 was? $47,000. Do you know what that is today, adjusted for inflation? $90,000. So the median price for a house today, adjusted for inflation, should be $90,000. But it's not. It's $300,000. It's psychotic crazy. It's nuts. It should not be that way. And it's only that way because we choose to allow it to be. And we can choose to fix it. Now, if corporations don't like paying wages that high, fine. Bring the cost of living down. Leverage your corporate wealth and power. Leverage your state powers, because corporations have state powers. That's why they're not capitalism. They're feudalism. They get to manipulate legislation. Hell, most of the legislation Congress passes is written by a corporation and handed to the congressman saying, pass this. That's called feudalism. So they can leverage their power to bring down the cost of living by making affordable housing more practical, getting rid of property and school taxes, by instituting universal health care. You do all that, and all of a sudden, a $12 or $13 minimum wage becomes completely practical. Because now imagine the government gives you a $30,000 loan at 10% interest. Fixed, not APR. So you'll be paying back $33,000. What's $33,000 on an even 5-year loan? It's $550 a month. You could pay off your house in 5 years at half, almost exactly half what you're currently paying for rent. You use shipping containers. You build modular homes. You're going to create millions of jobs building these homes. Millions of good-paying jobs building these homes. and you sell them with the land, meaning you pay off that loan in 5 years, you own it. It's yours. Now you pay nothing but property tax. That's how you fix this. You shift people from renting to owning, and you institute universal health care, and you push back on all of these direct taxes and you switch to indirect taxes. But the government doesn't want to do that because that eliminates the unlimited piggy bank they have. And the corporations don't want to do that because that eliminates their unlimited piggy bank. You know, the wealthiest 12 people in the country have more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. If you don't see that as a problem, go back to remedial math. I'm not kidding. That's if you don't see that as a problem, you're the problem. In no system should that be possible. You ever play the game of Monopoly? There's a reason it's called Monopoly. Well, I can own all the wealth in Monopoly. No shit, genius. That's why it's called Monopoly. The game is literally teaching you how not to run the country. It's literally teaching you why running the country that way is bad. I mean, the game of Monopoly is literally teaching you how not to run a country. Because that's what happens. One of you ends up with everything. Questions. Ask them down below. I demand it. Ask questions. If you have any issues with these numbers, you know the rules. You must follow the rules. You must function in the same reality I function in, the world. All right? There are your numbers. If you can follow my rules and show me how to lower this number without using cheat codes, without using social services, and without cherry picking, and whatever you come up with is viable for 60% of the population of the country, I will change these numbers to match what you give me. But you're going to have to prove it, and we're going to have to vet those numbers. Just like I fully expect you to screenshot that, go spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours on Google, and start vetting those numbers. You're going to see they're right. A lot of these numbers are my estimations. They're close to right, or they're extraordinarily conservative, meaning this is probably too low a number. I suspect survival wage is closer to $21 an hour. Not a living wage. That's closer to 30. I suspect survival wage is closer to 21. But in theory, those numbers should be possible at $18.60 an hour. And of course, every month that number gets larger because that number must follow inflation and CPI. If you want to see examples of what I'm talking about, Dollar Tree has 15,500 locations. Well, there is no Dollar Tree anymore. Now it's Not a Dollar Tree. Not a Dollar Tree has 15,500 locations. Not a Dollar Tree hires 193,000 associates. Not a Dollar Tree has a little over 200 million work hours per year, which is approximately 12,950 work hours per store. Dollar Tree averages $1.6 million in revenue per store. If Dollar Tree were to pay all of their employees $18 or $19 an hour, survival wage, it would cost them, what was it, 5% of their revenue. I made a mistake before. I thought it was 4%. It's not. It's 5%. It would cost them 5% of their revenue, $80,000 extra a year. They could add a nickel to the price of every product in the store that we wouldn't even notice. And now everybody they've hired can make $18, $19 an hour. So why won't they do it? Why would they not do that? Well, if you take the inverse of that, it's only $80,000 per store. It's only a nickel on each product in the store. But how much money is that for them? Now keep in mind, they're adding that to the price of the products. So it's not costing them anything. But they want what that number represents. And that number represents $1.24 billion. And they want that $1.24 billion. That's why they won't do it. On top of that, if you increase the minimum wage, all other wages go up as well. You don't just take, this person making 18 and this person making 8, and then you say, okay, well, now you're making 18. No, because now this person needs to make 28. Because everybody's being underpaid, except the CEOs. Everybody's being underpaid. And that's what people have to realize. They gaslight you and brainwash you into being that guy at the top of the ridge that kicks the ladder of the next guy trying to climb up and save himself. They're making you that guy. They're making you the Sparta kick guy, but the bad version, not the good version. Okay, they're making you the villain. McDonald's, 1980. Typical pay was $5 an hour. A Big Mac meal was $2.48. Today, typical pay, well, pre-pandemic, because the pandemic has messed everything up. Pre-pandemic, typical pay at McDonald's was $2.98 an hour. That's right, because typical pay was circa 2019 US dollars, $10 an hour, which converts to $2.98 in 1980. So in 40 years, they've actually lowered the wages 40% to below minimum wage, which was $3.10 in 1980. Had they kept the wage, $5, exactly the same, no increase, no decrease, they simply kept it exactly the same, matched inflation, typical wage at McDonald's would be $16.78 today. Not too far off the number I came up with. Isn't that interesting? Yet they've increased the price of the Big Mac at 157% the rate of inflation. If the Big Mac meal was increased at simply the rate of inflation, it'd be $8.32. You might go, but Chris, a Big Mac meal is $8.16. No, it's not. That's a circa 2022 Big Mac meal. We're talking about a circa 1980 Big Mac meal, which was a 32-ounce large soda, a large fry, and a Big Mac with 2 8-ounce patties. It was a double quarter-pounder set of patties on a Big Mac. Now a Big Mac is a 10-6 patty, which is 1.6 ounces each, or 3.2 ounces, and you get a medium fry and a medium drink. So even if you paid the upcharge to make it a large, the same as the 1980 meal, you're still not quite getting a large, because they shrank the large from 32 ounces to 30 ounces. You're saying, how much can they fucking make with 2 ounces of soda that probably cost them half a cent? Multiply that by billions of sodas a year. Your brain is not equipped to think on the scale that their accountants think on. I mean, here, look at this. I'm pretty sure we have numbers for this. 500 million cups of coffee per day. Per day. Just in the U.S. Not in the world. I'm pretty sure I'm about to break my calculator. No, I didn't. Okay? That's 182,500,000,000 coffees per year. 182 billion coffees per year, which means McDonald's makes a revenue of over $182 billion a year just in the U.S., just for coffee. So if they could figure out how to save 1 penny on that coffee, they would make an extra $1.825 billion in profit per year. Now, do you think they save some money by shrinking the soda from 32 to 30 ounces? And that's just coffee. They also shrank the sandwich from a double quarter pounder size sandwich to 3.6 ounces of meat. So if you wanted to go to a McDonald's and get as close as you could to a 1980 Big Mac, this will show you the true rate of inflation. You would have to buy a Big Mac meal, upsize it to a large fry and a large drink, and add 3 extra $1.29 patties to bring you to the double quarter pounder size that you had before, which would cost you over $14. Dollar Tree just raised all their prices to $1.25. 25% increase in price. No. No, no, no. On a lot of their prime products, the ones you go there to buy, it's a 200+% increase in price. The Luncheon Loaf went from $1 for a 13-ounce can to $1.25 for a 7-ounce can. The baked beans went from $1 for a 28-ounce can to $1.25 for a 12 or 14-ounce can. That's like a 230% price increase on both of those. Right? The laundry detergent went from a 64-ounce bottle for $1 to a 42-ounce bottle for $1.25. A 200% price increase. The batteries, the little coin cells, went from 3 for $1 to 2 for $1.25. A 200% price increase. See, the price you pay is dollar per unit, not dollar. Because if you get half the amount for the same price, they just doubled the price. Because now, in order for you to buy the same number of batteries, you got to spend more. You know, $1.25 is what, 62 cents, 62.5 cents per battery. So now to get the 3 batteries that you used to get for $1, now you've got to spend 62, 567, 77, 87, $1.87.5. So you got to spend $1.88 to get the same that you used to get for $1. That's an 88% price increase. Okay? All right? And yet they're not paying the employees more. It's all going right in their pocket. What is a 25% price increase to a Dollar Tree? $1.6 million times 1.25. They're going to make $2 million per store now. Well, maybe less, because now a lot of the stuff that they're selling is cheaper to buy at the grocery store and Walmart. I mean, why would I pay them $1.25 for 4 bagels when I could pay Walmart $1.45 for 6 bagels? Why would I pay them $1.25 for a loaf of bread when I could buy a larger loaf of bread for 88 cents at Walmart? You see what I mean? Why would I buy the Knorr pasta side dish for $1.25 at Dollar Tree when I could buy it at Smith's for $1? But a lot of people are going to keep shopping there, so they're probably going to get pretty close to that. All these companies raising prices while at the same time making record profits. So why are they raising prices? It's not inflation. Inflation is like 3%. So why are we seeing prices increases of 7.5% across the board? Price gouging. They see that the workforce has flipped. There are now more jobs than there are employees, because people died, people switched to self-employment, and people retired in greater numbers than the system was ready to handle. Which means people can now, for the first time, vote with their feet and actually demand higher pay. And the government wants to push higher pay because it gets them more taxes. Right? Although some of the government won't let them. And the other part of the government's too pussy to do anything about it. And so the corporations are throwing a temper tantrum. So they're saying, well, fuck you then. We're just going to rape you all for everything we can take. And they're raising prices like mad cow across the board. And they're blaming it on supply line issues, which are their doing, that they fucked up while making record profits. They fucked up. And they're blaming it on Democrats. Whatever party you want to blame it on, it's a bullshit scapegoat argument. They're price gouging. When are we going to get to the point where we start eating them? That's what I want to know. I want to know when we're going to get to the point where we enact the ETP protocol and we start eating them. You guys have a good night.